The dead ship that returned stronger than ever. Part 1. The salvage ship approached the dark shape floating against the stars. 5 crew members stood on the bridge, all looking at the dead vessel through the main window. This was the USV Resilient, a ship thought lost 5 years ago during the first alien attack on Earth. "I don't like this," said Olivia Grant, her hands tight on the control panel. As commander of Orbital Station Delta, she had argued against this mission. That ship was confirmed destroyed in the Varric assault. Frank Morrison looked up from his screens. "Well, Commander, something with its ID signature is definitely out there, and it's big enough to be the Resilient." The salvage ship, smaller than the dead vessel it approached, slowed as it came within 500 meters. Its light swept across the battered hull of the Resilient, showing torn metal and dark empty sections open to space. "Approaching final docking position," called the pilot of the salvage ship over the radio. "We're seeing significant damage to all outer sections. No signs of life or power." Olivia watched from the safety of the station, millions of kilometers away. The images came through with a slight delay. The Resilient had been one of Earth's best ships, carrying an experimental defense system that was supposed to help fight the Varric aliens. Instead, it had vanished during the first battle, presumed destroyed with all hands lost. "Begin docking procedure," Olivia ordered, "but be ready to pull back fast if anything changes." On the station beside her, Science Officer Diane Powell studied the readings coming from the salvage team's instruments. "These energy readings don't make sense," she said quietly. "There's no power source on that ship that could have survived 5 years without maintenance." "Could it be radiation from the battle?" asked Frank. "No," said Diane, shaking her head. "This is active, changing, like it's responding to our approach." The salvage ship extended its docking tube toward what remained of the Resilient's main airlock. The team leader, Captain Alan Reeves, prepared to be the first to board. He was an experienced salvage operator who had seen plenty of dead ships, but even he seemed nervous about this one. "Preparing to enter," Alan reported. "Airlock appears damaged but still functional." Olivia felt a chill as she watched the video feed from Alan's helmet camera. Something about this didn't feel right. The Resilient had been reported completely destroyed. How was it here largely intact despite severe damage? "Be careful, Captain," she said. "Get in, get the black box data, and get out. Don't take any unnecessary risks." Alan and 2 team members entered the airlock. Their lights cut through the darkness inside the dead ship, showing floating debris and frost-covered surfaces. The air had long since vented to space, and the temperature was close to absolute zero. "Moving to the bridge," Alan reported. "No signs of the crew so far." As the team moved deeper into the ship, the video feed began to show interference. Static cut across the images, and the audio became distorted. "What's happening to the signal?" Olivia asked, turning to the communications officer. "Unknown, Commander, it's not on our end." On the screen, they could see Alan's team reaching what remained of the bridge. The room was dark except for their lights, showing destroyed control stations and walls bent inward from some massive impact. "This is strange." Alan's voice came through the static. "The damage pattern doesn't match weapons fire. It's like something pushed its way out from inside." Suddenly, the lights on the salvage team's suits flickered, and their communications became even more distorted. "Something's happening," Alan said, his voice breaking up. "The ship, its power readings. Impossible." The video feed showed a faint blue glow beginning to spread through the walls of the dead ship. Where the light touched, the metal seemed to shift and flow like it was healing itself. "Get out of there now," Olivia ordered, but it was too late. The salvage ship's sensors suddenly registered a massive power surge from within the Resilient. Systems that had been dead for years came online all at once. The broken hull began to seal itself, metal flowing like liquid to cover the gaps. "It's changing," gasped Diane, watching the readings spike across her screens. "The molecular structure of the hull is reorganizing itself." The salvage team was cut off as the Resilient's airlock sealed itself, trapping them inside. The smaller salvage ship tried to pull away but suddenly found itself caught in some kind of energy field. "What's happening to my team?" Olivia demanded, watching helplessly as the situation spiraled out of control. The answer came 20 minutes later, when communications with the Resilient suddenly cleared. On the screen appeared Alan Reeves, but something was different about him. His eyes held a faint blue glow and his movements were strangely fluid, as if he was part of the ship itself. "Commander Grant," he said, his voice overlaid with harmonics that made it sound like multiple people speaking at once. "The Resilient has returned." "Alan? What happened in there?" Olivia asked, noticing how the other bridge officers backed away from the screen. "Alan Reeves is here, but he is also part of something greater now," the figure on the screen replied. "We all are, the ship, the crew, the entity that saved us." "I don't understand," said Olivia. "The Resilient was destroyed. Everyone was killed." "We were dying," the thing that had been Alan agreed. "Our ship was broken. Our bodies were failing. Then we encountered something in the darkness between stars, something that was also dying. Together, we found a way to survive." As they watched, the Resilient continued to transform. The damaged sections rebuilt themselves with new technology that looked nothing like the original design. The hull developed intricate patterns that pulsed with blue energy. "What are you?" Frank asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "We are the Resilient," the figure answered. "We are its crew. We are the entity that merged with both. We have returned because the Varick are coming back, and this time they will bring their full force against Earth." The transformed ship began to move under its own power, the engines glowing with an energy signature unlike anything in human technology. It broke free from the salvage ship's docking clamps with ease. "We have seen what the Varick fear," Alan continued. "We have learned how to fight them. We have returned to save humanity, Commander Grant. But to do so, we will need your trust." Olivia stared at the screen, trying to process what she was seeing. The dead ship had returned, but as something new and strange. Something that might be humanity's only hope against the coming invasion. "How do I know I can trust you?" she asked. Alan's face softened slightly, and for a moment, he looked almost human again. "Because despite everything that has changed, we remember who we are, Commander. We died protecting Earth, and we have returned stronger than ever to finish what we started. The dead ship that returned stronger than ever." Part 2. 2 weeks passed since the Resilient's return. The transformed ship now floated near Orbital Station Delta, surrounded by smaller military vessels keeping watch. Scientists and military officers came and went, studying the ship that had somehow come back from destruction. Olivia Grant stood in the station's main conference room, facing the gathered military leaders and scientists. Displayed on the large screen behind her was an image of the Resilient, its hull now smooth and covered with intricate patterns that glowed blue. "For those who haven't been briefed yet," she said, "what we're dealing with is beyond our current understanding. The Resilient was destroyed 5 years ago in the first Varick attack. Now it's back, transformed by contact with an unknown entity." General Peter Simmons leaned forward, his weathered face showing deep concern. "And you're saying the original crew is still alive in there?" "In a manner of speaking," replied Dr. Heather Jackson. As the lead xenobiologist assigned to study the Resilient, she had spent more time with the transformed ship than anyone else. Their consciousness, their memories have been preserved within the ship's systems. "So they're part of the ship now?" asked another officer. "It's more complex than that," Heather explained. "It's a true symbiotic relationship. The ship, the crew, and this alien consciousness have become something new. They can communicate through any of the original crew members, who serve as interfaces between us and the larger consciousness." On cue, the door opened and Captain Alan Reeves entered. He looked mostly human, but his movements were too smooth, too precise. His eyes had that faint blue glow that everyone found unsettling. 2 armed guards followed him, though no one believed they could stop him if the entity controlling Alan decided to act. "Thank you for allowing me to attend," Alan said. His voice sounded normal until he spoke for too long, when echoes of other voices, presumably the other crew members, would overlay his words. "You said you have information about the Varick," General Simmons said. Information that could help us fight them when they return. Alan nodded. We encountered them in deep space after our transformation. We learned much about them. They fear what we have become. He walked to the display and touched it. The screen changed to show strange alien ships with organic-looking designs. The Varric are coming back, Alan continued. Their first attack was just a test of our defenses. The next wave will be much larger. How can we trust this information? Asked one of the admirals. For all we know, this entity could be working with the Varric. Alan turned, and for a moment his eyes flared brighter. We died fighting them. We remember the pain, the fear. We would not ally with those who destroyed us. The room fell silent. Olivia stepped forward. What exactly happened to the Resilient after it was attacked? How did you transform? Alan's expression softened. We were hit by their main weapon. Our systems were failing. Everyone was dying. We drifted for days beyond help. Then we encountered something in deep space, a collective consciousness composed of advanced nanites. It was ancient, but dying after being separated from its home system. It offered us survival through merger. We accepted. A merger? Heather leaned forward, fascinated. Yes. It rebuilt our ship using its own substance, healed our bodies by integrating with them. We became something new, not human, not machine, not alien, but all three together. And in doing so, we gained knowledge and abilities beyond what either of us had before. General Simmons stood up and paced the room. That's all very interesting, but what matters is how this helps us fight the Varric. You said they fear what you've become. Why? The Varric themselves are partly organic, partly technological, Alan explained. But they fear true symbiosis because it makes adaptation possible at speeds they cannot match. They fear change. Evolution. Our new form represents everything they try to control in their rigid hierarchy. Olivia studied the transformed captain. Despite her initial fear, she had begun to see that whatever Alan had become, he still held true to his mission to protect Earth. You're proposing something specific, aren't you? She asked. Alan nodded slowly. The symbiosis must spread, but in a controlled way. We can share our technology, our abilities with your fleet. Not a full merger like what happened to us, but enough to give your ships and crews the edge needed to survive. The room erupted in shocked voices. You want to infect our people with this thing, shouted one admiral. Not infection. Enhancement, Alan replied calmly. The process would be voluntary. The crew members would remain themselves, but with greater abilities. Their ships would gain adaptive systems, self-repair capabilities, weapons that can actually hurt the Varric. General Simmons slammed his hand on the table. Absolutely not. We're not turning our people into whatever you are. Then you will lose, Alan said simply. Your current weapons cannot penetrate Varric shields. Your hulls cannot withstand their attacks. We have tried to fight them your way before. We died. That way. Silence fell over the room again. Olivia looked at the faces around her, seeing the conflict between fear of the unknown and the desperate need for a way to fight back against an enemy that had nearly destroyed them once already. How long do we have? She asked finally. Based on what we learned during our drift through space and the communications we intercepted, the main Varric fleet will arrive in approximately 1 month, Alan replied. General Simmons shook his head. Even if we wanted to try this enhancement process, 1 month isn't enough time to modify our entire fleet. We don't need the entire fleet, Alan said. Just enough ships to form an effective defense line. We can begin with volunteers. And you think anyone would volunteer for this? Asked an admiral skeptically. From the back of the room, a voice spoke up. I would. Everyone turned to see Lieutenant Gina Martinez, one of the younger officers. If it means saving Earth, I'd volunteer my ship and crew in a heartbeat. Alan smiled, an expression that looked almost human. You would not lose your humanity. That is the greatest fear, isn't it? But look at me. I remember being Alan Reeves. I remember my family on Earth. I still care about protecting them. The symbiosis doesn't erase who you are. It preserves what matters most. General Simmons still looked unconvinced, but Olivia could see that others in the room were considering the possibility. "We should at least test it," she suggested. "One ship, volunteers only. See if it works before making any larger decisions." After much debate, the council agreed to a limited test. The smaller frigate Aurora, commanded by Gina Martinez, would undergo the enhancement process under strict observation. As the meeting ended, Olivia approached Alan. "I hope you understand our caution," she said quietly. "Of course," he replied. "Fear of the unknown is natural. But sometimes, Commander Grant, survival requires us to embrace the unknown." She watched him leave, followed by his guards. The dead ship had returned changed, and now it offered to change humanity too. Olivia wondered if they would still be human after all this was over, or if they would become something else entirely. The dead ship that returned stronger than ever. Part 3. The Aurora floated beside the Resilient, connected by a glowing blue energy bridge. It had been 3 days since Lieutenant Gina Martinez and her crew of 20 volunteers had agreed to undergo the enhancement process. From Orbital Station Delta, Olivia Grant and the others watched with a mixture of hope and fear. "Any changes in vital signs?" Olivia asked, looking over at Dr. Heather Jackson, who monitored the crew's medical data. "Their heart rates are elevated but stable," Heather replied. "Brain activity is unusual. It's like they're awake and dreaming at the same time." On the main screen, they could see the Aurora's hull beginning to change. The standard gray metal now showed faint blue patterns spreading across its surface like veins. The ship's weapon systems were reconfiguring themselves, becoming sleeker and more integrated with the hull. "The process is nearly complete," said Alan Reeves, who stood nearby. His blue-tinged eyes watched the transformation with something like pride. "Lieutenant Martinez and her crew have adapted remarkably well." General Simmons scowled. "Adapted? You mean they've been turned into whatever you are?" "No," Alan replied calmly. "Their transformation is less complete than ours. They remain individual consciousnesses, though now connected to their ship and to each other in ways that will make them far more effective in battle." A communication request flashed on the screen. Olivia quickly accepted it, and Gina Martinez's face appeared. She looked mostly normal, though her eyes now had the same faint blue glow as Alan's. "Commander Grant," she said, her voice clear but with a slight harmonic undertone. "The process is complete. We are changed, but still ourselves." "How do you feel, Lieutenant?" Olivia asked. Gina smiled, an expression of wonder on her face. "It's incredible. I can feel my ship, every system, every hull plate. I can communicate with my crew without speaking. We're faster, stronger, more connected." "Are you still in control?" General Simmons demanded, pushing forward to see the screen. "Yes, General," Gina replied. "We each maintain our individual identity. The symbiosis enhances us but doesn't override who we are." Over the next week, the Aurora underwent extensive testing. The results amazed even the most skeptical observers. The enhanced ship could move with impossible precision. Its weapons had nearly doubled in power. Most impressively, when test drones damaged the hull, the ship repaired itself within minutes. The crew showed enhanced reflexes and coordination. They could operate in perfect harmony without verbal communication. Yet psychological evaluations confirmed they remained themselves with their memories and personalities intact. Word spread throughout the fleet. More crews began to volunteer for the enhancement process. The fear was being replaced by hope that humanity might actually survive the coming invasion. "We need to expand the program," Admiral Nina Clark said during the next council meeting. She had initially opposed the idea but had been convinced by the test results. "The Varric will be here in just over 2 weeks. We need as many enhanced ships as possible." General Simmons still looked uncomfortable. "I don't trust this. It's too perfect, too easy. There has to be a catch." "The catch, General, is that we are changing what it means to be human," said Olivia. "But faced with extinction, Change seems like the better option. The Council voted to proceed. 7 more ships underwent the enhancement process in the next few days. Each time, the procedure went more smoothly as the Resilient learned to better adapt the process to human physiology. Olivia spent long hours observing the transformed ships training together. They moved in formation with a grace that seemed impossible for vessels their size. In simulated combat, they anticipated each other's actions perfectly. "They're beautiful, aren't they?" Alan said, coming to stand beside her at the observation window. "Yes," Olivia admitted. "But also a little frightening." Alan nodded in understanding. "Change always is. But look how they work together now. The Varick rely on rigid command structures and overwhelming force. They don't understand true cooperation." "You seem very certain we'll win," Olivia said. "Not certain," Alan replied. "But for the first time, we have a real chance." Late that night, Olivia was awakened by an urgent message. A long-range scout ship had detected the Varick fleet entering the outer solar system. They were arriving earlier than expected. The emergency council convened within the hour. Admiral Clark quickly outlined the situation. "The enemy fleet is massive, at least 3 times larger than the force they sent 5 years ago. They'll reach Earth in 3 days. We only have 14 enhanced ships ready," General Simmons said. "The rest of the process would take at least another week." "We'll have to make do with what we have," Admiral Clark replied grimly. "Our conventional forces will support the enhanced ships as best they can." Alan Reeves, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. "There is another option. The Resilient itself has not yet joined your defense plans." All eyes turned to him. "The Resilient is 1 ship," General Simmons said dismissively. "Powerful, yes, but still just 1 vessel." "The Resilient is more than a ship now," Alan replied. "In these past weeks we have continued our own evolution. We believe we can do more than just fight alongside your fleet." "What exactly are you suggesting?" asked Olivia. "The Resilient can serve as a hub, a central consciousness that can help coordinate all the enhanced ships, a network that will allow them to function as a single organism when needed, while still maintaining their individual control the rest of the time." The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. "A hive mind?" General Simmons finally asked, his voice thick with suspicion. "No," Alan shook his head. "Think of it more as an enhanced communication system, like your neural networks but vastly more efficient. The Aurora and the other ships would remain autonomous, but they would gain access to the Resilient's greater experience and capabilities." Admiral Clark looked thoughtful. "Would this give us a better chance against the Varick?" "Yes," Alan said simply. "It would allow the enhanced fleet to adapt and respond as a unified force, while still allowing for individual initiative. The Varick have never faced anything like it." After much debate, the Council agreed to Alan's proposal. The alternative was likely defeat. The next day, the enhanced ships gathered around the Resilient. Blue energy arced between them as the network formed. From Orbital Station Delta, Olivia watched the ships begin to move in new patterns, more fluid and organic than before. Gina Martinez's voice came through on the communication channel. "It's working, Commander. We can feel the connection, not just to our own ships, but to all of them. We're still ourselves, but we're part of something greater now." The rest of Earth's conventional fleet took up defensive positions. Everyone knew the coming days would determine humanity's fate. Olivia looked out at the transformed ships glowing against the blackness of space. The dead ship had returned, bringing with it a chance for humanity not just to survive, but to evolve. Whatever happened next, there would be no going back to what they had been before, the dead ship that returned stronger than ever. Part 4, the Varick fleet appeared at the edge of Mars' orbit, a swarm of organic-looking ships moving with cold precision. Earth's defense force waited, spread out in a protective formation around the planet. At the center of the human fleet, the 14 enhanced ships glowed with blue energy, connected to each other and to the Resilient, through visible streams of light. On Orbital Station Delta, Olivia Grant stood in the command center, watching the tactical displays. Beside her, General Simmons and Admiral Clark coordinated the conventional forces. Alan Reeves stood apart from the others, his eyes glowing brighter than usual as he connected with the network of ships. "The Varik are moving into attack formation," reported one of the sensor officers. "They're splitting into 3 groups." Admiral Clark nodded grimly. "Just as we expected. They'll try to overwhelm us from multiple directions." The largest alien vessels held position at the back of their formation, while smaller attack ships moved forward. The Varik had learned from their first invasion and were being more cautious this time. "All ships, maintain defensive positions," ordered Admiral Clark. "Enhanced fleet, you are clear to engage at your discretion." On the main screen, the 14 enhanced ships suddenly began to move. They shifted with a fluid grace that made the conventional vessels look clumsy by comparison. The Resilient led them, its reconstructed hull gleaming with energy patterns that pulsed in rhythm with its enhanced companions. "They're beautiful," whispered Olivia, watching the ships move in perfect harmony. The first wave of Varik attackers fired their weapons, streaks of green energy that had torn through Earth's best ships in the previous invasion. But this time, the enhanced ships responded differently. Instead of trying to dodge, they created overlapping energy fields that bent the incoming fire away from both themselves and the conventional ships they protected. "My God," breathed General Simmons. "They're actually deflecting the Varik weapons." The enhanced fleet split into smaller groups, each moving to intercept a different segment of the Varik force. The Resilient itself charged directly toward the largest alien vessel, the command ship at the center of the enemy fleet. "What are they doing?" asked Admiral Clark. "They're breaking formation." Alan Reeves spoke without taking his eyes off the display. "They're adapting to the Varik attack pattern. Each group is targeting a specific weakness in the enemy formation." As they watched, the enhanced ships began to fire their weapons. Unlike the standard energy beams used by regular Earth vessels, these weapons sent out pulses of blue energy that phased in and out of normal space. When they hit the Varik ships, they bypassed the alien shields completely. "Their shields aren't stopping our weapons," Olivia said in amazement. "The symbiosis gave us insight into Varik technology," Alan explained. "Their shields operate on a predictable frequency pattern. Our weapons shift phase to pass through the gaps in those patterns. For the first time, humanity was causing real damage to the Varik fleet." Several smaller alien ships exploded as the enhanced weapons found their mark. The others began to adjust their tactics, pulling back to regroup. But the battle was far from over. The largest Varik vessels moved forward, revealing massive weapon arrays that began to glow green with building energy. "They're charging their main weapons," warned Admiral Clark. "Those are planet killers designed to break through planetary defenses." Alan's expression tightened. "The Resilient remembers those weapons. They're what destroyed us the first time." The Varik fired. Massive beams of green energy lanced out toward Earth. The conventional ships couldn't hope to block such powerful attacks and moved out of the way. But the enhanced ships converged, forming a barrier between Earth and the incoming destruction. "They'll be destroyed," Olivia gasped. But instead of trying to block the beams directly, the enhanced ships created a complex energy pattern between them. When the Varik weapons hit this field, they didn't break through. They were caught, contained, and then redirected back toward the alien fleet. Several Varik ships were hit by their own weapons, their organic hulls rupturing under the intense energy they had created to destroy Earth. A cheer went up throughout the command center. For the first time, the Varik were taking heavy losses. "They're retreating," someone called out, pointing to the tactical display where the alien ships were pulling back. "No," Alan said quietly. "They're regrouping. The Varik don't retreat. They adapt." He was right. The alien fleet was reforming into a tighter formation. The damaged ships moved to the center for protection, while the intact vessels formed a defensive shell around them. "They're changing their shield frequencies," Alan reported, his voice taking on that multi-layered quality as he connected more deeply with the enhanced fleet. "Our current weapons won't be effective much longer." "What do we do?" asked Admiral Clark. "We adapt faster than they do," Alan replied. On the display, the enhanced ships began to change. their weapon systems reconfigured, the blue energy patterns on their hulls shifting to new configurations. Even as they watched, the ships were evolving in response to the Varick adaptations. "This is what the Varick truly fear," Alan explained. "Not our weapons or technology, but our ability to change rapidly. Their society is built on rigid control and slow, managed evolution. What we're doing now is chaos to them." The enhanced fleet launched a new attack. This time, instead of energy weapons, they fired what looked like clouds of glowing blue particles. These clouds surrounded the Varick ships, seeping through their shields, as if they weren't even there. "Nanites," explained Alan. "Part of what helped rebuild the Resilient. They're penetrating the Varick hulls and disrupting their systems from within." On the screen, Varick ships began to drift, their green lights flickering and dying as the nanites disabled their systems. Some of the alien vessels started firing on their own companions, their targeting systems compromised. "We're winning," General Simmons said in disbelief. But at that moment, the largest Varick command ship surged forward in what looked like a suicide run, directly at Earth. It was charging a weapon unlike any they had seen before, a swirling vortex of green and black energy that seemed to bend light around it. "They're desperate," Alan said. "That's a space-time weapon. If it hits Earth, it could tear apart the planetary crust." The Resilient broke away from the rest of the enhanced fleet, accelerating on an intercept course with the Varick command ship. Blue energy built around it, forming a spear-like shape as it gathered speed. "What is it doing?" Olivia asked. "What it was rebuilt to do," Alan replied softly. "To protect humanity, no matter the cost." On the display, the Resilient slammed into the Varick command ship just as the alien weapon reached full charge. There was a blinding flash as the two energy fields collided, blue against green. For a moment, both ships seemed to warp and distort as space itself bent around them. Then everything went white. The dead ship that returned stronger than ever. Part 5. When the light faded from the screens in the command center, everyone stood in shocked silence. Where the Resilient and the Varick command ship had been, there was now a swirling cloud of energy and debris. In the command center of Orbital Station Delta, Alan Reeves suddenly collapsed. Two officers rushed to help him, but he waved them away, his eyes flickering between normal and the blue glow they had grown used to seeing. "Alan," Olivia moved to his side. "What happened?" "The Resilient," he gasped. "It's damaged. Badly, but not destroyed." On the main screen, they could see the rest of the enhanced fleet continuing to battle the remaining Varick ships. Without their command vessel, the alien fleet was in disarray. Some tried to retreat while others fought on with desperate fury. "Status report," Admiral Clark demanded. "The Varick are breaking formation," reported a tactical officer. "Their coordination is gone. Our enhanced ships are picking them off one by one." General Simmons stared at the tactical displays. "We're actually going to win this." Olivia helped Alan to a seat. His connection to the Resilient clearly caused him physical pain now. "What's happening to the Resilient?" she asked. "It sacrificed most of its structure to stop the Varick weapon," Alan explained, his voice strained. "The core consciousness survived, but it scattered, trying to rebuild itself." "Like before," Olivia said, "when it was first damaged and met the alien entity in deep space." Alan nodded. "Yes, but this time it's different. This time, it has friends." On the screen, they watched as the enhanced ships finished off the last of the fighting Varick vessels. The aliens that tried to flee were allowed to go. Humanity was interested in survival, not extermination. As the battle wound down, several of the enhanced ships moved toward the energy cloud where the Resilient had been. "What are they doing?" asked General Simmons. "They're helping it rebuild," Alan said, "sharing their energy and materials. The network that the Resilient created works both ways." Over the next hours, they watched an amazing sight. The enhanced ships surrounded the remains of the Resilient, extending beams of blue energy into the debris cloud. Slowly, pieces began to come together, forming a new structure. "It's not rebuilding into its original form," noted Heather Jackson, who had joined them in the command center. Indeed, the ship taking shape looked nothing like the Resilient had before. It was smaller, more streamlined, with a hull that seemed to flow like liquid metal. "It's evolving," Alan explained, taking what it learned from the battle and adapting to be more effective. 2 days later, when the last of the Varick stragglers had fled the solar system, the enhanced fleet returned to Earth orbit. At their center was the reborn Resilient, a gleaming vessel of silver and blue that moved with incredible grace. A ceremony was held on orbital station, Delta, to honor those who had fought in what was already being called the Second Varick War. The crews of the enhanced ships attended in person, looking mostly normal except for the faint blue glow in their eyes. Gina Martinez, captain of the Aurora, spoke for the enhanced crews. "We remain human," she assured the gathered officials and media. "Changed, yes, but still ourselves. We chose this path to protect Earth, and we don't regret it." The biggest surprise came when a new figure stepped forward from the Resilient's crew. It looked like a man, but was clearly something more. His skin had a slight silver sheen, and his eyes glowed blue more brightly than the others. "Who is that?" Olivia whispered to Alan, who stood beside her on the observation deck. "That is the Resilient," Alan replied, "or rather, a physical form it created to better interact with humans. It contains the merged consciousness of the original, alien entity and all crew members who didn't survive in their original bodies." The silver figure approached Admiral Clark and General Simmons. Its voice was melodic and layered, as if many people spoke as one. "The Varick have been driven away, but they will eventually return," it said. "They fear what we represent, the next step in evolution that they have tried to avoid. But we will be ready for them." General Simmons, who had been so suspicious of the enhanced ships, surprised everyone by extending his hand to the silver figure. "On behalf of Earth's defense forces, I thank you. Without your sacrifice and return, we would have been destroyed." The figure shook his hand. "We were part of humanity once. In a different way, we still are." Later, as the ceremonies ended, Olivia found Alan staring out a viewport at the reborn Resilient. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Will more ships undergo the enhancement process?" "Some will," Alan replied, "but only those who choose it freely. The symbiosis must never be forced. That would make us no better than the Varick." "And you?" Olivia asked. "Will you stay with us or return to the Resilient permanently?" Alan smiled, looking more human than he had in weeks. "Both, in a way. I'll continue to serve as a bridge between humanity and what we're becoming. The future isn't just enhanced ships or new technology, it's finding the balance between what we were and what we could be." Olivia looked out at the stars. "The dead, ship that returned stronger than ever," she mused, "and brought humanity back stronger too." In the months that followed, the enhanced fleet expanded slowly, always with volunteers who understood what they were choosing. Earth began to rebuild its defenses, incorporating the new technologies derived from the symbiosis. Scientists studied the captured Varick vessels, learning more about the aliens who had nearly destroyed them twice. They discovered that the Varick were themselves the result of a controlled evolution, a species that had tried to direct its own development, but had become rigid and fearful of change in the process. The Resilient remained in Earth orbit, a guardian and a symbol. Sometimes, it took the form of a ship. Other times it appeared as the silver figure. Some called it alien, others called it the future of humanity. Perhaps it was both. 5 years after the battle, at a memorial service for those lost in both Varick wars, the silver figure stood before the gathered crowd. Its voice carried across the silent audience. "We died protecting Earth," it said, "and we returned stronger than ever. Not because we became something alien, but because we embraced change while holding on to what makes us human, our compassion, our creativity, our willingness to sacrifice for each other. That is what the Varick fear. That is what they can never understand. And that is why, no matter how many times they return, humanity will always survive." As the silver figure finished speaking, the enhanced ships overhead performed a synchronized flight pattern, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Among them, the Resilient led the way, no longer a dead ship, but a living symbol of humanity's incredible ability to adapt, overcome, and evolve.